Good morning, everyone. This is Rick Alberty, the Executive Director of Chamber South. And today we have another edition of Chamber South Spotlight. And today I have the honor of speaking with Kendall Peterson from Elemental Strategies. How you doing, Kendall?
I'm good, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So my first question to you is, who is Kendall Peterson?
Wow, I don't know that we have that much time. I am I'm a husband. I'm the father of 7 children.
7 children.
I
That's
am
awesome.
I'm a business guy and a long time South Florida resident. That sums me up in a nutshell.
How long you been in Florida?
Almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years. And where from?
Originally from Illinois.
Originally from Illinois. I don't think you miss Illinois that much with that cold weather.
Yeah, I don't miss the cold.
Yeah.
But I miss the greenery and I miss the farmland and I miss all of that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I
this
said
is home.
it's totally different
It
down here. It is totally different. So, Kendall, tell me about elemental strategies. To you, what is elemental strategy?
To me, boy, that's a good way to ask that question, Rick. So, to me, what Elemental Strategies is a lifeline to businesses and to business owners. Too often, when you're running a business, especially on the smaller side, but too often business owners just carry the weight of everything they're doing and then everything they're doing it for, right? Whether it's their long-term future or the money they need to take care of their family or for their employees. And that's a lot of weight. And most business owners go to bed and can't sleep because they're worried about how they're going to make payroll. They're worried about this decision or that decision. So, elemental strategies to me is a set methodology and an operating system that we can bring in to help business owners be able to sleep at night.
That strategy that you've developed, it could fit any business.
Any business, any organization. So I'll even elevate it a little bit above businesses. So we've worked with businesses and sports teams and churches and any organization. So any group that is doing something for another group, then yeah, we can help.
You know what? I mean, you're so right. I've run businesses before. Hell, I'm running a chamber now. It is a business, and I do put a lot of things on top of myself. My employees, my events, my members, driving membership up. How about revenue? How are we on our bank account? Everything on a daily basis. And a lot of owners, business owners, pour their whole life into their business and they just can't get ahead. Why do you think that happens?
Systems. So a well-run organization does a number of things reasonably well, right? But at the end of the day, if an organization is built on the back of good people and it's not built on a systematic way of working through whatever it is that they're trying to do, then it becomes a burden, right? Then what it is just people working hard. And what that becomes for a business owner is really it's a job just with the extra overhead of the pressure and the responsibility, right? You don't really live up to what you hope by running your own business. But well run businesses have a system in place so that they can operate, and you could literally take the owner out of it for a period of time and it should still be able to operate. Um,
I've heard that many times. You should be able to take the owner out, take the leader out, take the CEO out, whoever it is, and the business should be able to operate. But many people think that that takes a lot of money and that takes a lot of staffing. Is that the case?
no, not at all. And that's the idea you can come to if you're thinking of it from a people perspective, right? And that's how we tend to think of business. I'm an owner. I'm doing all of these things. I'm running this business. You make it very personal. So if you remove me, there's really two schools of thought. One is then what I'm doing is I'm removing what this person does. And the other is a little bit of ego, right? Is that I'm so important that if you could operate for 30 days without me, I must not be that important, right? But that's not the case at all. And that's not the reality of it. That's just a perception that we buy into sometimes. The reality is that the leader, the business owner, and the leadership should be more the visionary and the strategy people thinking of the long-term future of the organization and putting the system in place. Instead, what they tend to be is the day-to-day doer. And that's not what leadership is. Leadership is something totally separate from the day-to-day doer.
It's so difficult to separate the two.
It's very difficult. If it were easy, everybody
My
would do it.
God, it is so difficult to separate the two of the everyday leader because a lot of leaders, a lot of business owners think they can't do it as good as I do it, or I've been doing it this good for this amount of time. If I don't do it, no one's going to be able to do it. And do you run into that a lot?
All the time. And because we all start as doers. I mean, very few people, their very first job is owner of a company. Sometimes that happens, right? But usually you start as a doer of some sort. So you get used to that, right? And your personal worth, your personal value is becomes a productivity metric. I did this, I sold this, I made this much money, I installed this many toilets or whatever it is your job is, right? So we're used to those kind of day-to-day productivity metrics, but leadership doesn't get measured. Let me rephrase that. Leadership should not get measured in those same productivity metrics.
I agree. I agree. I agree. But, many times there's companies that they're hitting the revenue growth, they're hitting the revenue numbers. If they're doing well and they're growing, could they still be in trouble?
100%. In fact, the phrase I use internally is revenue hides all sin. And
Revenue hides all sins.
yeah, when you're making money, right? So the first thing you have to think of is revenue is a lagging indicator, right? Revenue is the byproduct of everything you did prior to that revenue coming in, right? How did I sell? How did I prepare my product? How did I deliver my product? All of those things. So if you're looking at revenue, you're looking at the tail end and saying, we did great. That's why it's easy to hide, because as long as your revenue numbers come in where you want them to be, or hopefully over where you want them to be, then you think you're good. But revenue hides dysfunction, revenue hides an absence of clarity, revenue hides the chaos in the machine, so to speak. So you could be making your revenue numbers, but have a highly dysfunctional organization. You could have people that are burning out because of the way that they're working. And that's where that system that we started with, the system mentality, if you get the right system in place, you'll make your revenue numbers. But what you will have is a more efficient, more well running machine along the way.
You keep talking about system, that key word, system, system, system. How long does that system take to build? Is it different for every organization? Is it more or less the same? Do you use more or less the same system for each business? Explain that to me a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I do kind of throw around a word that A gets used differently and B gets misused all the time. And when I'm talking about a system, I'm not talking about a software application or a tool per se. What I'm talking about is a way of work. And when you look at the way of work, it's more your methodology and kind of your process from start to finish. So that would be different from organization to organization or from function to function. So the way you run a chamber is different than the way I would run elemental strategies, or the way uh, Eric Spolstra would run Miami Heat, right? Very different systems, but the way you would look at them would be similar. So what you want to do is start with your output, begin with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What is it we want to accomplish? What do we need to do? What role do people need to play in that? And how do we pass information and output from one step to the other in the most effective and the most efficient way. If you're not thinking that way, which most people don't, you don't have the luxury if you don't know to do it, you don't have the luxury of figuring it out because you have to get it done. And so people just do what they do, right? But if you can take an extra second and think through what is the most effective and efficient way to get this done, then you'll start to see where you have the clutter. Now, I don't know about you, but if I go into, not that I do it all the time, but if I go into a McDonald's, it's probably one of the greatest example because you can see everything going on, right? You can see the drive-through over here, you can see the people in the back making the burgers, you can see the cashier at the register. And what's tough for me is I see dysfunction. You see them crossing over each other and miscommunications and things like that. If you can just stop for a second and look, and I would imagine if I took any one of those people outside and had them look in, they would see it too, right? We don't do that as business leaders. We don't take that time, even get 15 minutes. Just take 15 minutes and look around, and it would change your perspective. So a system isn't set across the board. It's very particular to what you do and the way that you do it, but the way you would look at it would be the same. And start looking from the outside and just look at where is the inefficiency in what we're doing, where is the miscommunication in what we're doing, and if you fix those two things, it would be a night and day difference.
The key word to me is time. God, I wish sometimes there's not enough time in the day to get everything done. And then you ask yourself, am I putting too much on myself? Am I not a good delegator? Am I doing all this petty stuff that I shouldn't be doing? Am I wasting my time here when I should be doing this? So clarity is extremely important in a business, in any business. I worked at UPS for 20 years and I was in management there for the majority of my time. And I have the same problem you do when I walk into a place. You walk into a place and you go, oh my God, because we were there. I mean, it was so down to the T. They had methods for everything: how to load a trailer, how to unload a trailer, how to scan, how to sort packages, how to do everything because they spent the time and the money to measure all those things to see how could be the most productive way to do it. I still remember you should be able to unload 1,000 packages an hour, load 600 an hour, do this, do that. And, it's ingrained in your mind. So when you walk into a place, you do see dysfunction, but as a business leader, many times as the owner, you don't see the dysfunction.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point, Rick. And so time is finite, right? And we only have, there's 60 seconds in every minute, and there's 60 minutes in every hour, and 24 hours in a day, and so on and so forth. So that's all we have. So really, the thought isn't, I'm filling all of the time, or it shouldn't be, I'm filling all of the time. It should be what I'm filling that time with. And that's, I think, what gets missed if I look back over the hundreds of businesses I've worked with and the businesses that I've studied and the ones that I've worked in. The one commonality was the good ones had a way of taking the time to make the time, right? I had a I had a boss. So I started my career, more or less started my career with Florida Power and Light, which taught me a lot about quality improvement and things like that. And I had a boss that had the most profound thing that really changed not just the way I viewed my career, but actually has a huge effect on the way that I do what I do now. And he said one time, what you say no to is more important than what you say yes to.
Oh boy, is
And I was like,
true?
that just doesn't make any sense. I was young and arrogant, and now I'm old and arrogant, but back then I was young and arrogant. And And I really kind of dove into what he was talking about, and what he meant there was you do not have enough time in your workday or in your personal day to do everything. You just don't, right? We don't have enough time to fit everything that we want to do in our lives into the span of our life. We don't have enough time to do every bit of work we could do in a workday. So what's important is, what are you going to say no to? How are you going to determine what you're not going to get to? Because you're not going to get to something, right? That's a fact. You're not going to get to something. So you better have a process, or you better have a way of determining what's more important than another. And so a lot of what I do is teach prioritization when I'm going in and we're establishing a system. How do we determine what's important? How do we determine what we're going to do and what we're going to prioritize? Because if you do that, then the things you don't have time for aren't going to hurt you as much as those things that are very important. And so when you're putting your system in place, that is one of those things that you absolutely have to do, is have a way of determining what's most important. And guess what? That is the leader's job, right? That's why you can take a leader out for a period of time and it still functions, because what the leader does, and I subscribe to the West Point School of Leadership. Leadership is 10% setting the direction the organization's moving. It's 10% setting the pace you move in that direction. And the other 80% is nurturing the team so that they are the best version of themselves to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. And so if you're setting the direction and setting the pace, that is the prioritization, right? We are going here and we need to be there by this time. And so these things are important as a result of that. And it makes all the difference in the world, Rick.
Oh, I bet you it does because every single day, I, if you're too nice, you say yes to everything and you try to help everyone. And I'm learning more and more each day. I have to start saying no. And I have to say no more often because I can't be everywhere. I can't be at every event. I can't be doing everything because then there's so many things that fall by the wayside that you're at home working until midnight and still not getting even close to being caught up because you always going to have something that you never get to. So that's a very good point.
Yeah.
There's things that you're never going to get to that's just not going to happen, you know? And those are the things that you have to determine, is that what I don't want to get to or I cannot? Or is that something that doesn't matter if I don't get to it right now? And that's the key, I think.
Yeah. And from there, what you're able to do then is figure out, okay, how do we do more in a healthy way? Right. So if I've got my priorities and I don't have enough time, my team doesn't have enough time, then we need to make a change. Right. That what that does is it leads you right into what I call the three P's, right? Is it a person that I need? Is it a project that I need? Or is it a process that I need? And I run that through a little filter, right? If it's a person, it has to be long term. It means I'm going to bear a burden, right, of payroll
Absolutely.
and
Another
time of
payroll,
training and
another
all of that.
employee.
Do I need a person, or is it a project? Is it something that's time bound? If we attack it for a month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months or whatever, if we attack it, do we solve whatever problem we're having? Do we solve whatever shortfall? Or is it a process? Is it just a different way of what we're doing? Can I solve it in the right way with one of those instead of just bringing people in? Because what you do on the downside is you increase burden on the organization, you increase pressure on the leader. He's awake at night.
Hmm.
Now, how do I make payroll?
Hmm.
Right? When you could have solved it on Fiverr, for $200, getting somebody to do something that makes your life better. Right. And I see that all the time. Everybody thinks you need to hire more people, more people, more people. It's not always more people. Sometimes it's a rearrangement of the way you're doing something or a process, or sometimes it's just short-term help where you can bring somebody in and knock something out to make it better.
You just said something that made me think. Technology is changing on a daily basis tremendously. AI. what a big role it has in a lot of businesses right now. Is that something that sometimes you offer, or is that sometimes that you recommend to probably save time and cut down on specific chores that are being done?
Yeah, so that plays a big role in the guidance that I give to organizations. Plays a big role in my business as well, right? So I'm a purist when it comes to that, and I will tell you that technology tools, as a rule, enable processes. That's all they do. What I get distressed over is when I get a phone call, "Hey, AI is so big. How do I bring it into my business?" Like, whoa, wait a second. Like we're having the wrong conversation,
Station.
right? The conversation should be, what are we doing? And it goes right back to what we just talked about. What are my priorities? Right? Where am I short? And then is that a person, a process, or a project? Right? If it's a process, let's attack the process, right? Because that's where you can buy the time. If, for example, I'm going to just make something up here, but if, for example, you have a process in the chamber of onboarding members. I'm sure you do to some degree, or you wish you had a process of onboarding them better,
Remember,
whatever, right?
exactly.
But bringing new members in is not, I decide I want to be a member and then I'm a member and everything's good. It's introduction to what a chamber represents, an introduction to the business and what the business does. How does the business fit into the community? How does the business fit into the chamber? How can the business maximize the benefits of being a chamber member? What tools and resources are available? It's a marriage, right? So you have to work through all of that. You could spend easily 10 hours doing that, probably a lot more than that, right? Just hand holding. Okay, so let's say it's 10 hours to onboard every member, whether it's your time or somebody else's time. That's a lot of time,
That's a lot of time.
right? And I would argue, and you could probably argue it, you could spend more than 10 hours
Oh, no
easily on
doubt.
any given one. But if we go with 10 hours, is there a way you could onboard them leveraging technology that would shorten your time commitment, right? So let technology do the heavy lifting. Could you do an onboarding video, right? So we're not even talking about AI, right? Could you just record 15, 20, 30 minutes of all that the chamber could offer so the person could digest it whenever it's available,
Whenever it's
right?
available to them.
So you would have to spend more than 30 minutes to create the video, but you'd only have to do it one time and then they could watch it. So now we've shortened your time with them, right? Could you create a software tool that uh, creates a dashboard so that they know what they need to do, when they need to do it, what opportunities are available, what sure, you could do that. It would take time to create the tool, but then they could digest it on their own. So that's where the tools and technology come into play, is to shorten your cycle time. If you're doing it for the sake of doing it, you're doing it wrong. It's going to cost you more money. It's going to cost you more time. You're not going to get the value. I've never seen that not be true. So what you really want to do is understand your priorities, understand your process and your system, your way of work well enough to know, where could I shorten my cycle time and buy me more time, right? If you're doing that, and there's no shortage of AI tools, there's no shortage of non-AI tools. The tools are out there to enable you to do it, but you would be damaging your business if you didn't look first at your process and your way of work.
And like you said, those tools can help your processes
Absolutely.
because you are so right on. Just something simple as a chamber, you know, a member comes in new, and many people think immediately, well, I just joined the chamber. They got 300 members, 300 people going to walk through my door. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't
Wait,
work
it
that
doesn't?
way.
Darn it. What am I doing here?
So you've got some great ideas and the processes. I'm going to hit you with one more thing, then I'm going to ask you another question. But a lot of business owners, they're the owner. They do the inventory, they do the hiring, they do the firing, they do the delivery, they do it all. And they think that that is their process. They don't take the time to step back and take a look at what the process is. Do you agree with that?
100%.
Okay. So tell me one good success story
Mm. One good success story around that in
around
particular.
your business, one of your clients, something that you really felt, wow, that was great, that they got it, they got the message.
Yeah, man, there's so many of them, and
Right.
they're all very different, which is what I love about doing what I do. The first one that comes to mind is a medical device company, and this company had a really, really great solution, and but the entire organization operated on the backs of good people, and what they really needed were just some key areas where they could come in and get a system. So what they were trying to do, they had developed a solution for surgery. It was kind of new and revolutionary, adopting technology in the process. But their process from ordering materials to manufacturing the devices, all of these disparate manufacturers and trying to go through the process of FDA certification, which is clunky and cumbersome, and they could use some work. So FDA, if you're out there, I'm here. Um, but that whole process was just they were spending a lot of time bouncing things back and forth and losing things, and so we were able to come in and help them navigate like how do you proper what do you need, how do you step through your process? What's the desired output and streamline that? So this is an operational efficiency kind of engagement, and actually we were able to do that. We made the process much more streamlined. What we did as an added benefit was we gave a lot of confidence to the FDA, which was great, but also to the people that eventually came in and bought the organization.
Sensation.
So they sold the product off, but it was because we were so methodical in the way we worked through it. It wasn't haphazard and all of that. That's probably on an operational efficiency kind of scale. That's the a good example. On the strategy side, just kind of organizing your priorities. There are a lot of them. I've worked with a lot of companies that grew from a couple $1 million. I've been with organizations, 8 different organizations. We grew to over $1 billion,
Oh my God, that's awesome.
mostly because of that, right? Setting where we want to go, prioritizing the work that it's going to take to get there, and then working with them to develop the ways of work that make them successful.
Well, Kendall, I know that you and I could sit here for hours talking about, you know, what you do and how it fits into the business world. But time is of the essence, as always. Uh, but it's obvious that what you do and your business of elemental strategies is extremely important to all businesses, whether you be a small business owner, medium, or large business owner. So, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way is through our website, elementalstrat.com, short for elemental strategies. Elementalstrat.com. Pretty much everything that we do is there. There's forms all over the place that you can fill out. The other thing that I'll give a shameless plug to, so we do a health assessment for organizations
Okay.
that are built on the essential elements, the 7 things that every successful organization does. So from the website, you could initiate this simple 7 question assessment that will kind of let you know where you fall on the scale of whether you're doing something well or not doing it well. But more important than that, we'll get the results of that assessment. And then I personally take every one of those that come in and I will write a prescription or an action plan on how you can start improving in those areas. I will give you 2 tools or templates or guides for each one of those areas, all free, and I will never reach out and ask them for business. It's not a sales tool. It's a I want to give back and I want to help businesses be better.
Well, you can't ask for anything more than that. So, thank you because I took one of those, I answered those 7 questions, and what you wrote back to me helped me out a lot.
Good.
So, I appreciate that. So thank you for your time today, Kendall. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a chamber member. And on three, we're going to say goodbye to those cameras right
All
over
right.
there. Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.